Welcome to the Fulfillment Project podcast, where we, the seekers, unite together to step into our higher selves and highest purpose. I'm your host, Simpli Sara, and I'm glad that we have found each other here today. My aim for this show is to give you some tools and strategies along with the awareness of emotional intelligence and intuition as you create a life and business from alignment, creating more joy and fulfillment every single day. Hello, sister friend. Welcome back to the Fulfillment Project podcast, or maybe welcome to the Fulfillment Project podcast. This is where we talk to you, the woman behind the business, behind the labels of coach, mother, spouse, sister, daughter, fitness enthusiast, all the labels that you put on yourself and all the priorities and all the things that we have to uphold in this thing that we've created called life. And we really talk about how you can do it in such a grounded and aligned perspective so that we truly feel like we are alive and on purpose and have meaning and inspired energy, and that life just feels really groovy in how we are creating it. Like, hello, yes, sign me up for that. Simply Sara is my most aligned, highest version of myself. I created her, I believe it was like last summer. It was like a download that came to me. And it's that version of myself that I am always, looking to align with, looking to, create more capacity for, to grow into, because our highest self is our most fullest capacity, loving, compassionate, fueled by meaning and purpose self. And so why would we not try to align with that as best as we possibly can? This is going to be a short, quick, action, rapid fire podcast for you. I'm really going to be talking about the 4 signs that you need to know that it's time to grow. And these are 4 signs that I have recognized over the years of just signs and symptoms that pop up that force me to have a little bit more awareness on certain areas of my life and things that possibly need to be changed. A lot of my growth for the past, for about a decade until a couple of years ago, was not intentional growth. I would read books or grab this or see someone recommend something, come across a course. I'm like, oh yeah, it sounds great. Maybe I'll sign up for it. And like learning and growing in different areas, but really didn't sit down and have like a focused awareness on my current life and what's happening and how I'm feeling and how things are structured, and ultimately how that's playing out for the manifestation that's created with this thing. And when we can do that, that's when we become super intentional, because we start navigating the problems or the dis-ease that's in our life right now, not looking outside of ourselves of maybe what someone's telling us that we should do. And so awareness and auditing of ourselves before we're really in action with anything is always what I recommend. It's the first part of how I teach aligned intelligence, which is awareness. So I'm going to dive right into these. So number 1 sign that I know that it's time for me to grow, and maybe this is for you as well, is that life starts to feel dull. This could be an overall feeling, or it could be a particular area of my life where there's no inspired energy, that creativity is not flowing through. Things just start to feel a little bit more hard and dense when I do that. And when that dullness comes over, it's not like one day it was dull. There's this repeated pattern of noticing just that lack of energy. It really shines that or illuminates that area for myself to have a look at. Okay, is it the actual thing that's not inspiring me anymore? I'm like over it and evolving past it and need to evolve it. Or is it myself and the intentions that I have that are showing up in that? And maybe I've just gone on a little bit of autopilot and not really brought my full self into that. 1 second, I have to cough. I apologize. I got a tickle in my throat. Number 2 sign that I know it's time to grow is that I have a desire, but my nerves start to kick in. And so every time we want to create something new or up level or do something that is out of our realm of comfortable zone, I'll call it. I like to look at these different zones as we grow. There's our comfort zone, there's fear zone, there's learning zone, and then there's that growth zone where life just feels very satisfying. And we're always at different stages of these growth cycles, depending on what we're working on, or depending on where your focus is. And it's okay for your entire life to not be in the growth zone. In fact, I don't know if that's ever possible, because there's always an evolution of everything that we can have a look at. But when I have a desire and when my nerves start to kick in, it's a time for me to sit down and say, okay, where am I not feeling so sure of myself? Where do I need to build more confidence? Where do I need to build more competence so that I feel like I can actually show up in that area with confidence? And so if you are desiring something and you feel those nerves kick in or that anxiety or that like, oh my God, like I don't know if I can do this, it's just a really good sign that perhaps there's some area of growth that's needed. Shine the flashlight on some areas of your life and have a look at how do I elevate myself so that I can go to that next level, so that I can have that next layer of a desire. Because everything that's in your life right now, there's probably a familiarity to it. There's been such a repetition of maybe those actions or that being in your life that it's known. And so when something is unknown, this is really when our ego wants to kick in. It's that protective mechanism. It does so many wonderful things for us, but when it comes to like growing and elevating and evolving parts of our life from a like an up leveling or a different version of ourselves that needs to show up, it can kind of kick in and make us feel like, oh, I don't know if I should do that. But if it's a strong desire and if you feel it truly in your heart and you are lit up by it, don't be afraid of those nerves that kick in. It's just a sign that there's just some growth that needs to happen within yourself. The third sign that I know it's time to grow is when I am in action and recognize self doubt or comparison. And so the one before was like, I have a desire, like it's there, I'm thinking about it, it's a possible creation, and my nerves kick in. And the third one is when I am in action and there is that self doubt or comparison or just that those nerves that can pop up as well. This happened to me this past spring when I went all in on, the Simply Sara brand and creating my retreat and creating new offers. And Joe and I stripped away another business we were part of. We stripped away an old coaching model, and I was like, I'm like fully in it. And I had this moment. I had this huge moment of growth. I think it was like the end of March, beginning of April of this year, where I'm in action and I'm recognizing self doubt. But when we can become the observer of it, and this is a really good tool for you able to be able to help you with your growth, is when you recognize the self-doubt or you recognize the comparison. If I'm like, oh, how is she marketing her stuff, or how is she pricing her stuff, or what does her website look like when I'm building mine, like when I get into that, I know it's the time to like stop, step back, really learn to be the observer, where I take myself out of it. And that's what I did. I took myself out of it. I had to look at like the bigger picture. Okay, you're coming out with a new brand, new offers, new topics and conversation pieces that your audience isn't used to hearing about. You're not used to doing them. You don't have any proof on the other side that this is going to work. Of course, self doubt is going to kick in. That's my ego. Like it's supposed to be there to keep me safe. But having that trust and that faith and becoming that observer and looking at things from a really subjective perspective, as opposed to being like in it and feeling those emotions, that's what will keep us stuck if we stay in it. But when we can take ourselves out and just recognize, okay, this is the season I'm in, and it's a time to turn that lens on myself and look at the areas that need to grow so that I can be in action with confidence with this thing that I want. And the fourth and final sign that it's time to grow is that there's a negative thought pattern that I'm noticing. And so a negative pattern, not a negative thought pattern. And so if I'm in action and I'm doing things and life is chugging along, and I start to notice that there is a repeated disappointment that I'm feeling with something, or there is a repeated frustration of a task that I'm doing, or if there is this uninspired energy and I'm really just doing it to try to get relief, or if I'm feeling there is a capacity overload. So disappointment, frustration, uninspired energy that I'm just trying to get relief from, or I feel like I've overloaded my capacity and that maybe walls are closing in and I just don't have the space for all the things. This is another time for me to step back and look at, okay, where do I need to grow? What is it that's frustrating me? What is it that's really causing disappointment? How do I learn to turn that around? Is it something that I need to stop doing? Is it something that I need to start doing? Is it a mental shift in my mind and a different perspective that I need to have on something? Because when we manifest in alignment, we want to feel alive. We want to feel like we have inspired energy. We want to feel like we are on purpose. We want to feel like we have full confidence. And we ultimately want to be performing at our best so that our truest, most authentic, highest versions of ourselves come out. And so, at every stage of your life and at every next level of something that you're taking on, and it doesn't even have to be anything big, like maybe you decide to have a photo shoot and put different photos of yourself up, or change a messaging in your marketing, or maybe create a new offer. Maybe you're not doing what I did, which was like wipe the slate clean and start over. Maybe it's just something small. That in itself can bring up these signs that we need to grow. And I want you to lean into that. And then the more that we get comfortable with growing and evolving ourselves, the more that we get comfortable with taking ourselves out of the comfort zone into the fear zone, recognize the fear zone. The fear zone is where these signs are going to pop up of like, oh my God, I need to grow here. Like myself, my whole being, my whole self, my nervous system doesn't know what it's like to operate from this new space that I'm stepping into. And so we must learn to train our whole self to have the different reality that you want. And that is the process. Move from comfort zone, we go into fear zone where we're recognizing that our nervous system is revved up. But then we need to go into the learning zone, which is where we're taking on new skills. We're trying things. And when we get into those patterns over and over of trying and finding our new footing and proving to our ego that it's safe and that we can move forward and we can regulate our nervous system to do the thing, then we enter that growth zone where there is high satisfaction for our life, where we are setting newer, bigger, higher goals. We will be back into that comfort zone again eventually, but that is that process. Tony Robbins says, if you're not growing, you're dying. And a lot of times when we feel stuck or we feel like we have that inspired energy, it's just because we're not growing. We're not feeling that progression. We're not feeling that momentum forward towards the things that we want, which is a natural part of our human evolution, is to dream and desire and to achieve and to grow and to bring new things into our life. And they become so satisfactory to us because we change with that process. And so I'm going to rattle these off as we finish up the conversation today. The 4 signs that you know it's time to grow. Number 1, life starts to feel dull. Number 2, you might have a desire and you're going to feel your nerves kick in. Number 3, maybe you're actioning and you're recognizing that self-doubt or comparison. And number 4, there's a negative pattern that you're noticing with maybe disappointment, frustration, uninspired energy, or that you just have this capacity overload and that maybe boundaries have been crossed, or you've been saying yes more than you've been saying no. And these are all areas that we can grow within ourselves so that we feel better in the manifesting and creating of the life that we want. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining me on this episode today. My website, simplisara.com, is a great place for me to continue to support you on your journey to alignment, joy, and fulfillment. There you will find upcoming retreats that I am hosting, resources, books, and many other helpful tools to help you on your travels through this thing called life.